Technical difficulties, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We've actually been having technical difficulties for the last 45 minutes. Technical difficulties, everybody. But thank you so much for tuning in. We are hopefully on the go now. Everything seems to be hopefully fixed. Yeah, no sound. Thank you, Marcus. Thanks, guys. It's been about 45 minutes. We've been working on the technical issues. So thanks, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. Appreciate it. Jason, thank you. I think everything should be good going forward from this point forward. Thanks, Hart. Thanks for confirming. Appreciate it. So what I was saying is thanks to everybody, of course, for tuning into the inaugural episode of Comic Art Roundtable. For those of you stepping in for the first time who have not heard me say this before, just want to let you know the idea behind the show was because the impetus essentially was every year, the spring, summertime, a couple of buddies and myself, we go outside, right outside my door. There's a little park. We pull up some chairs. We sit around in essentially what is like a round table format. And we just shoot the shit for like 4 or 5 hours, whatever. We start right after lunch, typically go until it's supper time, and then we got to go in. So I thought, we always have so much fun doing that. And I know that there's a lot of you out there in the community who don't have friends, local friends, for instance, that you can talk about the hobby with locally. And for you guys, especially, I think this is kind of an opportunity for you guys to, hey, Mike, to, be the proverbial fly on the wall, so to speak. And, listen in to some friends talk. And, as far as I'm concerned, anybody tuning in, you guys are friends now, whether I've heard of you before, whether you're brand new or you've been around for a long time. We're all friends, and this is what we want to do, is just make the community a better place and more inclusive to everyone. And so that's it. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce my 3 guests. And the first invitee that I asked to be on the show, as you guys already know by now, they're all Canadian and hailing from Ontario, Canada, is my good friend, Bob Kopman. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how you doing, Ruben?
What's up, man?
Happy to be here.
Good. Glad to have you, man. My second guest, some of you may or may not know, but we're all on CAF. His name is, obviously you're going to see it in a second, going by Mike K. Not sure if he wants to keep the last name a secret. So I'm just going to go with Mike K. What up, Mike?
How you doing, Ruben?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm new to all this. No secret. Mike Kirton.
Mike Kirton. There you go. All right. And last but not least, an old friend of mine that some of you do know better, I guess, than the first 2 gentlemen, most likely. Also hailing from Ontario, Canada, the inimitable Duke Fleed.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for coming out on a Sunday.
Excellent. Good to see you, man. So, guys, for everybody listening, tonight's chat basically is going to start off with, the idea was essentially I was talking with Bob privately, and he said something to me that I thought, it just came out of his mouth. I thought it was really funny. It's a topic that pretty much everybody in this hobby talks about. And it's always constantly on our mind. So I figured out what the heck. But since Bob was the one who sort of first threw it out there and brought it up to me privately, I'm going to throw it out to Bob and let him sort of start us off with the whole shebang, and we'll take it from there.
No,
Bob?
Ruben, I hate to be that guy, but since you brought us back in, I don't see them. So I don't know if I'm going to have to bow out of this one, or I'm only seeing you, brother.
Okay. Well, just so you know, I can see you and I can hear you.
And I can see and hear you.
Okay. And Bob and Duke, can you see and hear Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
See Mike.
And can everybody else see Mike?
Okay. So everybody can see you, I guess. So Mike, just hang in there and just,
Let me hang in there, but I can't hear or see either of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, I guess that's not ideal, but we'll deal with it, right?
can open up a second window for YouTube and watch their YouTube.
I mean, if you got to go at some point, Mike, you got to go. Don't worry about it. Just let me know and just drop out.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
And Ruben, you can also sort of maybe relay what one of us said if it's directed to Mike. So hopefully he can still participate properly.
Yeah, that'll be tough though, having to repeat everything everybody says.
Yes, I
for Mike's
can't.
benefit, right? Like so.
I'm gonna try and restart. You guys keep going. I'm gonna try and jump back in, okay? And see if that fixes it.
Sure. Did you want us to introduce ourselves, Ruben, or just go right to the topic?
Yeah, no, it's actually a good idea. You know what? Especially for you, Bob, since you haven't been on before. Yeah, why don't you just take a few minutes and let us know a little bit about how you got into collecting and
sure,
your journey, because it's a pretty interesting one. So
okay, well, I hope I don't let you down. And by the way, Mike Davis, hey, nice to see you and nice to see everybody. I hope whoever went to Heroes, it was great. So sure, let me just start off. So I've been in the hobby for a while. I've probably been collecting art since maybe the late 70s. I started off with commissions. I remember my first piece of art was commissioned by an artist named Jim Craig out of the Silver Snail in Toronto. And then Canadian boy, yeah. And then they used to get other people coming into the Snail, so I used to get sketches from those guys. Over the years, I've had a lot of because I was in the hobby for a long time. I've had a lot of really nice pieces pass through my hands, like Byrne, Miller, Toddleben, Bissett, lots of cool stuff. Sadly, most of it's gone now, but I enjoyed it when I had it. I remember buying John Buscema, FF, and George Perez Titans pages in the $5 art pile, ones at a con in New York. So that shows you how long it's been since I started collecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you're not even really that old. So that's what's crazy about it. It makes you sound way older than you really are.
Well, 2 minutes for looking good. I use Grecian formula. So I don't know if anybody knows that reference. Yeah. And even like Frank Miller, I remember him coming to Toronto, bought a nice page. And I remember I got a Punisher sketch from him because nobody picked it up at the end of the show. There's this beautiful little sketch. And I'm like, I'll take that for $10. So, the old days when things were affordable. My collecting has shifted quite a bit. Nowadays, I'm more into independent art. So I collect Love and Rockets, Peter Bag's Hate, and I also collect a lot of vintage Archie art. So I like a lot of the guys like Harry Lucy, Dan DeCarlo, Bob Montana, Sam Schwartz, Bob Balling, all those guys. So that's kind of where my collection has shifted. You can still sometimes get that stuff for half decent prices, and I love it. It scratches the nostalgia itch. And frankly, the superhero stuff that I had, I just, for the most part, I can't afford. Like I like, right. I'm a 70s, 80s guy. So I'm sort of Bronze Age, love Silver Age, but tough to get that stuff. That's pretty much me. I'm on CAF a lot. We don't get a lot of cons in terms of art up in Toronto, but I love the hobby. I guess I'm more of a watcher, less of a participator, but nice to see the comments. I try to leave comments when I can, and it's fun to talk art whenever I get a chance to. So thanks again for having me on.
No worries. And I just wanted to say, Bob's responsible actually for more or less introducing me to Peter Bag's art. I was aware of it already, of course, but for those of you who don't know, the three of us, actually the four of us, even Mike, who's not here at the moment, we go once per year to a friend's house out in Ontario. Jeff Singh, fellow collector and friend of all of ours, who hosts a collector art gathering. And so, of course, that's where Bob first showed me his portfolio, and I sort of, the first time I got a better look at that Peter Bag stuff, and I've since dipped my toes into the Peter Bag market, and not only that, but Archie as well. I've gotten a little bit of Archie art too, so thanks to you. So it's cool, and I just want to say actually that I would use the word cheap. I would still use the word. That's especially Archie art. To me, that's like dirt cheap, but your mileage may vary, I guess,
Yeah, for a while there, Heritage was having Archie art every week, and now it seems to have dried up, and I don't see it out there quite as much, but I'm sure it'll come back, hopefully.
Yeah, it's I guess it goes in waves, and then it kind of comes back after a few months once they feel like they've hit maybe a bit of a saturation point, or whoever the consignor is, or maybe they own that stuff themselves for all we know, right? Like we don't really know. But if it's consigners and they feel saturated, it's, it might be sometimes worthwhile to just give it a rest for a few months before you start bringing it back every week,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's neat because you're buying 50-year-old art sometimes for really, really good prices. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Howdy, folks. Traveling right now, so can't stay for the live chat. Wanted to say hey to Ruben and his guests. Drop a thumbs up and we'll catch you on the rewind. It's a nice day for a Jeff wedding. All right, catch you later, Jeff. Thanks, man.
I just wanted to say about the Archie art drop things. I think we all get lulled into certain art being available all the time regularly. We see it appear every weekend and we think that it's going to keep coming, but usually these things are not everlasting. They might last a few months, maybe a year, but once that supply dries out, it's harder to get. So I would say anytime you see a roll of something, don't take it for granted, take advantage of it. Try to go for it and try to avoid taking it for granted and thinking it's always going to be there, because then that's when you miss out. I've seen that happen with other things, Kurt Swan and other things. They come in waves and all of a sudden nothing.
Yeah, the thing about that though, Dan, is I'm curious because how do you see though? Because I've given people that advice, right? But then it's like, every time you see it, grab it. Well, but then you always have to contend with the fact that, your pockets are not usually bottomless, right? So every time I see it, I grab it. But then you sort of keep accumulating a lot of stuff that, and you run into the issue where, when something you really, really want more than the other stuff comes up, suddenly what do? You might be sort of out of money kind of thing. You know what I mean?
So that's very reasonable. But I would say don't buy it if you don't love it, but don't not buy it because you think it's going to be always available. That's what I was saying. It's like a double-edged thing. A lot of people think it's always going to be available, therefore I should wait. And I know in chats with Larry Ton and others, he's passed on certain things because things seem to be plentiful and waiting for the right piece. And then you get the right piece, never comes along, and then the other stuff is gone also. So better to get something. If you like it enough, you got to take your budget into consideration. I didn't say don't do that, but just don't take it for granted. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Mike.
I totally get
Okay,
that.
hey, guys. I'm trying to do this on the phone.
We can see you. Can you see us?
Yeah, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get to Bob's topic.
Excellent. Okay. Hold on.
Okay,
Actually,
okay.
no. Let's just for the benefit of the audience who don't know Mike, most of them don't. Mike, would you take a couple of minutes just to give us a little, a brief rundown about how you got into collecting art and how long you've been doing it, and just to get the viewers to sort of know you a little bit,
Yeah, absolutely. Started collecting art in 2009. I got to be honest, I don't recall exactly how I stumbled across CAF. It might have been through the CGC message board somehow. But, I wasn't a member or anything, but I'd always check it pretty regularly. And then I remember one day I logged in and I saw a 100 Bullets splash page by Dave Gibbons. And I said, I've got to have this, right? So created an account. Automatically, I'm thinking to myself, if I reach out to this person, they're going to tell me you just opened the account, buzz off, right? But tried anyway. Reached out to the gentleman. I'm sure everyone knows Joseph Melchior. I hope I didn't butcher his last name.
Melchior.
Melchior, right.
Kior. It's like a hard K.
Oh, Melchior.
Melchior, yeah.
Joseph, apologies, brother. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I know I just opened the account, but I really want to get this page. He couldn't have been nicer. Smooth transaction, sent it to me, and then been hooked ever since. Yeah. So thanks to Joseph for giving me a nice smooth transaction right off the bat.
He's a nice guy, Joseph. Yeah.
I ended up meeting him in San Diego. I want to say 2017. Super nice guy.
Very, very much so. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, man. Duke, I got to do this just for the benefit of the audience. Give us a quick rundown. You actually also, much like Bob, although Bob really shortened it down. If he gave the long version, which we don't have a lot of time for, but if you gave it, it's a lot more interesting. You also have a really interesting story, especially with how early you first bought art and later took a long gap and started it up again. Maybe give a quick brief rundown of it.
A quick rundown. I bought some comic art at a convention when I was a young teenager, like 12, 13, 15, 17. I bought a bunch of different arts. Then it started getting, I kind of put it away, didn't think much about it. Over time, it got a little bit yellowed. And I thought for sure the next stage was dust. So I thought I better get rid of this stuff before I have nothing left. And I sold it at like double the money today. Stuff that's worth then $100,000 or more, but back then $100, So everybody's talking about losing stuff, and that's kind of how it started. And I started again about 7 years ago and been on CAF, and now I'm stuck collecting, so I can't get out of it.
Man, that was about as fast. That is like way faster than I was hoping for.
Marcus wants me to go on. He's like, it's a 3 hour show. Get going.
No. You know what, guys? Just for the viewing audience, you guys, like, if you knew the whole story, I mean, obviously I don't want like every last detail, but I mean, the stuff that Duke bought back in the day, he bought some just great stuff. And then ultimately, ended up getting rid of it.
I want to focus on the negative is really what it is. Things that are gone, I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, Rich. You see, Rich, that's concise. Yeah, maybe a little too concise, but whatever. All right, that's okay. All right, since you guys don't like to do little background stories, whatever, that's cool. I'll be happy to move it along and get into the gist of the conversation, and let's do that. So, Bob, are you ready to lay it on the line like you like you did with me?
I'm happy to get it started. Yeah. It's funny you said, longer version of the stories. You just never know what people are gonna find interesting or not. You don't want to give your whole story, but yeah. So anyway, Ruben and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, just sort of shooting the shit about art and everything. And we all see how crazy prices have gotten. I mean, I'm not gonna. Everybody knows that. I even watched a little bit of last week's show and you guys were talking about that. It's a given. And if you watched Heritage's auction, the big one a couple weeks ago, I mean, just looking at how many pieces were over 100K. It's amazing. Right. Like stuff that was $5 grand, 10 grand a few years ago. Now it's 10 times that amount. And, that's been talked about to death. So that's not really the topic here. What I said to him was, and, I want to preface this by saying, obviously, everybody collects what they collect, right?
Yep.
And whatever you collect, more power to you. My collecting tastes is not everybody else's taste. So whatever you collect, fantastic. But I see this from time to time, and I look at these, and this is the example I'm going to give, just one example. But I look at these Frank Miller sketches that I see people buying, for example, between $1,000 and $2,000, and they're ugly, right?
But Bob, you're so just so I know, you're referring to the those Miller sketches on the comic book, those blank comic book covers? Is that
or even just on whatever, like on pieces of cardboard? I mean, commissions.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're so quick and rough and whatever.
That's it. They're quick. They're rough. They're expensive, and I just scratch my head about that. Like, I mean, is it because you just want something by Miller?
I think the word you used was shitty.
Well, they're not like I just wouldn't do it. There's so much that I could drop $1,500 on. Then of course it's going to appeal to me. And I love Miller. Like I'm really a big fan of the guy. I think his stuff is great. And obviously, like from the 80s, I mean, not so much today, but when you're buying something that looks like he spent 30 seconds on it and you're dropping, like I say, a G, $1,500, $2,000. What is the appeal? Honestly, yeah. Like I see Rich said glorified autograph. Like, why do that? Is it just because you have to have something by Frank Miller? And he's not the only guy, but he might be one of the only guys that people are paying that kind of dough for. I just, that's one of those things that I just think there's got to be something better you can spend your money on. But again,
let me just interject and say one thing though. Just to put it out there, because for the most part, I agree with you. But I will say that I have seen some, and the ones that I thought, okay, that's not too bad. But what I realized after seeing a few was that the ones that I always tend to sort of like more happen to have been the ones that were inked by Klaus. You know what I mean?
I saw one that was inked by Klaus. I saw, somebody paid big bucks for a really, really rough pencil, and then Klaus inked them. And I mean, like I like Klaus as an inker. I didn't love the piece after Klaus inked it, and it frankly looked maybe more Klaus than Miller. But sure, like obviously you want to have a Klaus ink Miller, I guess. But I'm just saying the Miller pieces by themselves, they're just so rough and so loose that I wonder about the appeal. And that's kind of what we talked about. Right. Are the sellers taking advantage of people? I see, I can't see the chat. I got this little thing over the chat, but prices are going up. People are paying a lot of money for remarks, and they're paying a lot of money for head sketches. That's just the way it is today. But a lot of people walk away with what they think is beautiful stuff. And I'll say, yeah, maybe my taste, may not be my taste. But with the Miller, it's just, I got a Miller. I mean, not even to say anything about the people paying $15K for the Jim Lee stuff last year. You know, and a lot of that was for charity. So that's great that the money's going to charity. But that was
for sure.
sky high dough too. But at least the stuff is really, really, really nice. So that was kind of jumped out at me. Conversation, just sort of throwing it out at you. So that's where we got the idea, I think.
Hey, Mark.
Sorry. Go on.
Sorry, Mark. I just wanted to say, Marcus, can you elaborate a little bit more specifically on that comment? Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. If you could just elaborate a little bit, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, at least with Lee, at least with those ones that he did for charity, to me, the 15K was on the page. Do you know what I mean? Some of those I thought were extraordinary.
Right.
And
Gorgeous.
when you look at it, he's putting the effort in, right? I'm not saying Frank's not putting the effort in. I'm just saying he's giving you, it's a 30-second sketch. Let's just call it what it is, right? And at $1,500, I've got it, but I'm not a buyer. Not at that price. And a lot of them look very repetitive to me. So again, I'm with Bob on that one. That being said, I did see a Miller piece. I don't know how this person finagled this commission, but it was like a 20 by 30. This was a couple of years ago of Spider-Man.
I saw that.
I thought it was quite good at 11K. Now we're talking, right?
Yeah. And I see Mike Davis makes a great point that there's not a lot of
I
Miller out there. People are fighting for it, but
So Mike Davis, hey Mikey. So don't discount that a lot of guys are trying to keep up with the Joneses collecting wise. So number one, Mike, I mean, of course that's true, but then again, that has been true surely ever since I've been in the market. So that's for me, that's one of those no shit Sherlock type things, right? Like I don't think that'll ever stop. And to your second point, many are scared of getting fully priced out of the market. Well, listen, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've been getting priced out for 25 years. And what I mean by that is from the day I got in, I've been priced out, okay? Because the things that I wanted to buy 25 years ago, right, the stuff that I really wanted to buy first, okay, just so you know, Burn X-Men, I had the money for it. If it were, FYI, $500 a page on average. But almost everything else, even going into like Silver Age stuff, was $75 to $150, right? So it's like it's all perception, right? If I'm gonna blow $500 on a Burn X-Men page, and I know that, oh boy, at the same time I could actually get 10 other pages, or 8 other pages that I also like a lot. It's kind of, it's what do you do? So I made the decision to just go and get more art rather than just the one page. And I've been doing that ever since. It's kind of like when I started, as whoever saw my the last week and the previous week's episodes of that Hulk collection that I once put together. I did that, but eventually was getting priced out of that and said, okay, well, what do I collect now? And then again, started to look for something else to collect. And it just for me, it has just kept going and going and going. A repetitive theme where I get priced out of a certain part of the market. And so because I still want to collect because I love it. And, thankfully I've always had very, very broad tastes, lots of characters, lots of titles, lots of genres. So thankfully I've been able to sort of say, okay, I guess I can't afford that anymore. Let me collect pages from this now, but I've been doing it for 25 years. So it's a great point, Mike. And a lot of people that I remember from back in the day, when I say back in the day, up until like from the 90s up until around 2008, a lot of guys that I knew back then, they did get priced out permanently around 2007, 2008. But that's because they didn't really care to sort of collect down, as I say, right? And look for something else that they like and can afford. They just liked what they liked at the time. And once they could no longer afford it, they dropped out and that was it. So I barely see any of those people anymore. And everybody that has come into the hobby since 2008 onwards, those guys are like what I call newer collectors. You know what I mean? And they don't really know what went on before. But yeah, man, the prices have been escalating so rapidly for so much longer than anybody today seems to realize, you know?
Hey, Ruben. So the first stuff that comes to mind is I think the people who are buying those Frank Miller sketches, they're not buying it and they can afford to buy the $15,000 version. They cannot. If they could, I don't think they would want to buy the $1,500 version, because you said you could buy the X-Men, but you chose not to buy the X-Men. That's a different scenario. I think in this scenario, it's someone who cannot afford the expensive piece, and they still want to have something by Frank Miller, because there's no other sense. I mean, if you could afford a good Miller piece, it's hard to excuse getting that one unless you really like it. And I can't imagine there's a lot of people liking it, but they're selling he's selling a lot of them because you see them a lot. So my guess is it's just an affordability issue, simple, and not because it's a choice, you know.
I got you. Thanks, Nick.
Do you guys think people are buying them to resell them in a lot of cases?
No,
I don't think so. I think like Duke. So what you're saying is kind of like what we had touched upon last week for a little bit in part 2 of that Hulk collection episode. Where we talked about placeholders. So you believe that a lot of the people buying those Miller cover sketches, whatever you want to call them, you think it's more about, for most people, they're buying a placeholder, and maybe not a placeholder, because a placeholder means that you're just going to wait until you get something better. So I guess it's similar to that, but I think if I understand what you're saying, you're sort of saying that it's these guys that are buying those things are guys who know they probably won't ever be able to afford something at a higher range, at least in published work, and therefore they're sort of satisfying themselves in order to say, okay, at least I got my Miller. I've always wanted a Miller, and here's my Miller original. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think if you're not, because 1,500 to 15,000, that's not a small jump. That's that's a huge jump. So if you're not comfortable in that higher level, a lot of people, they're comfortable in some level, whatever that level is, and usually as you push the boundary, you're comfortable slightly higher. Like when you get to 500, you go, I can go to 600, maybe I can do 1,000, and you get 1,000, maybe 1,200, and keep building up. So maybe one day they'll feel comfortable, but maybe there's, everybody's finances is different. But I think those people are buying it as a way to fill a gap in their collection, that they wanted to have something, and they know they're never going to jump to that other level, or at least they don't foresee jumping to that other level. There's no other reason I can't imagine another reason for that. It's, even though I agree the quality is not ideal. It's not ideal quality. And
there's not that much Miller out there. I mean, when you look at what he worked on, Ronin, Dark Knight, Daredevil, like it's all expensive and it's limited, relatively limited. Unlike a lot of other artists where you can find B-level stuff, like Mike Davis is talking about B-level DD pages. But yeah, I mean, that was, people consider that run one of the classics in Marvel, certainly in the 80s. So people are thrilled to have a page from there. There's just not that much of it out there. So yeah, I agree with what you said, Duke, and the point was made earlier. If I want Miller and that's what I can afford, I'm going to get it. I guess for me it was just what you're getting and what you're paying. So
it's not the same, but like about 20 years ago, I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and I got a sketch from Travis Charest, and it was on a backboard, and it looked like a 5-year-old drew it. You know what I mean? Like I threw it in the garbage. Okay, like he signed it. Yeah, because I thought to myself, nobody would believe. I have another sketch find that's wonderful, but this one, nobody would believe it, right?
Nobody would believe you threw that in the garbage, Duke. Come on, man.
No. You believe I threw it because I'm telling you, but you wouldn't believe if I showed you the art. You would question if I was lying about the art that this is Travis Charest, right? Because it was
look at Mike's face.
It was a glorified stick figure, right? And I was like, nobody's gonna look at this and think this is Travis Charest. And I didn't think it was.
This is how we're doing our Canadian brothers now.
Sorry,
you do that to your Canadian brother? Just throw his art in the garbage.
Well, he put it in the garbage. He created the garbage, and I had no choice. I was putting it in its rightful place. And I'm a huge Travis Charest fan, so I was really disappointed. But I was like, the point is, the Frank Miller sketches, they're not quite on that level. They're much better than the Travis Charest sketch that I had. But only maybe like twice as good. Like they're just, he's not putting in the effort, and it partly because maybe he's got like some disability going on, right, due to drugs.
But Duke, can I just ask, especially given that you said it was on a backing board, right?
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that what you're talking about is what we used to, what I used to know from way back in the day, as one of those free con sketches. So they spend 2 to 5 minutes tops just doing it with a pen on a backing board. Was that basically it?
That was basically it. But usually you can tell who the character is, and you can recognize the artist style, even if it's simple. Like, there's lots of Michael Turner sketches like this, or Jason Campbell, Adam Hughes. They're like, they're quick 3 lines, but you know exactly who drew it. But this thing here, you would swear like a 3-year-old drew it, And so my point is, I don't know, if the artist is not making a great effort, then maybe it's not worth having, is what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, was it free? I just wanted to get that part clear.
Well, yeah, I did him a favor. Whenever as a thank you, he did this thing, but this thing was not really helpful. So, and I respect the way. I'm a huge fan, and he did me a beautiful drawing like 5 years later that I have, So it's not a diss of him, right? But that day, that moment, he was, whatever reason, he was out of it. So,
Yeah. Mike Davis makes an interesting point, right? So what's interesting to him regarding Miller is that guys are paying what he considers stupid money for 30-second scribbles, right? And yet Mitch sells primo Miller Sin City for frankly not much more. Now, having said that, I don't know that I've seen 30-second scribbles selling, for anywhere near Miller Sin City pages myself. But I'm sure there's a certain amount of exaggeration in your comment, Mike. I get it, but I get your point as well. So yeah, it's
maybe like 5 times as much. I think they're $7-8 grand. Some of those pages that
it's not even close.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I do believe that it's because it's not just one. There's not just one answer, right? It's not like, oh, well, all those people are buying all those shitty looking Miller sketches for $2 grand. Oh, because that's all they can afford. For sure, in some cases, it is true, right? And then don't forget, guys. Don't forget though. There's also people that think they look good, right? So the ones, and listen, some of them are nice, some of them are not so nice.
Does anybody in the chat think that they look good? Feel free to thumbs up if you believe it is.
Duke's taking a poll now, so that is an interesting question. Though,
honest, it's legitimate.
Legit question to the live chatters. Do any of you guys think that any of those Miller cover sketches on the comics are look good? Let us know, because it's interesting. I'm sure some people do. Listen, the people buying them, they cannot all be people who recognize, hey, that's a shitty sketch, but I'll buy it anyways, right? Some of these people think, well, that looks like what Miller's been drawing like for years, and he's famous, so I'll buy it anyways, and it looks pretty good, right? To some people,
it's also what the market will bear. Like if it was 10 years ago and you could line up and get that for $50, you might be very happy. I got myself a nice little Frank Miller sketch, right? Like,
sure.
It's the quality's no better, but it's the price to sketch differential that I'm talking about.
Mike also makes a very good point with keeping up with the Joneses, right? When you see these sketches for 1,000, 1,500, 2K, you get that FOMO, right? You see, we've all seen what happens if you wait too long, right? I would like something by Bruce Timm. Used to see them for, $700, $800, $1,000, much more detailed than what we're talking about in terms of the Frank Miller sketches. But now those same pieces, we're starting to creep up to 4, 5, 6 in some cases where you're getting the full body, right? So it's kind of like the same thing happens to me, right? FOMO, it hits some of us, maybe a lot of us. If you don't act now, you don't want to miss the boat.
As long as people are paying it, they're going to keep charging.
As Samuel says, the next stage is Miller drawing a square, but it's a Miller square. It's hard. Yeah, I definitely get the point, right? It's and listen, Marcus, Miller's living the life most artists wish they get, for sure. Whatever. That's more power to him, of course, but it's not. That's not really the point, right? We're just sort of saying, from a collecting standpoint, right? It's, who the hell is buying this? And why, why would you spend that much? But whatever. That's,
if I could take it to like another, leaving
ahead.
Miller on the side, what about buying art that is say a lower level of an artist you like, just to have that as opposed to, like, let's say you like Kirby, but you buy say a series that isn't that good without a major character in it, like a page that has no major characters from a later series that you didn't really maybe collect it, but you wanted Kirby because you're a fan of his earlier work, or as an example. But it could be any artist, right? Or buy, let's say you like a Jim Lee, but you want a Jim Lee from a series that you never heard of, with a character you've never heard of, with, like, half of the page is blank, but just it has the name of the artist, right? You just want to have a touch of the artist. There was those examples recently at Heritage that sold of the Frazetta prints with a tiny little sketch on the bottom of a cat girl, and they sold for crazy money. They were like very reasonable for a long time, and now they're like thousands and thousands of dollars, which is crazy. I think Unker took advantage of that when it was on Dueling Dealers, and then afterwards Heritage had it for like, was it 10,000 or something crazy? Maybe somebody remembers. So I mean, maybe just people want to have something, anything by an artist they like, and then that's good enough. They don't really care. They just want to. How do you guys collect that way? I don't collect that way personally.
I have, yeah. I remember I bought a Destroyer Duck Kirby page. But
Destroyer Duck is cool.
Well, sure. I mean, I'd love to have a Western page, or maybe even a Monster page. I know it's going to cost me 1/10 the price of an FF page, but it's still good-looking Kirby art if you like Kirby art, right? So I don't have a problem with it. I don't even consider it the same thing. But at the same time, sometimes maybe you don't want to settle. You want to save up for primo pieces. But I think it's okay to do that. I've done that myself.
I haven't done that with an artist per se, but Ruben and I, when we first met, we share a love of CrossGen. Rest in peace, CrossGen. But we both love Ruse. So I would love a cover from the first volume by Butch Geis and Mike Perkins. However, there was one other Canadian collector who had a lot of them. So I got a different piece by, I believe it's Paul Ryan. It was from the first volume. It had the main characters on there, and I was fine with that and remain fine with that.
The other collector being John Stewart. Big up, John.
Oh, you're putting his name out there.
Hey, man, he knows everything.
I figured that's
being the Ruse guy, and he's a good guy, man. I love John.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he's.
And the late show was awesome.
I haven't got to meet him.
There you go.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
man.
I'll do it with the series, but not necessarily. Haven't done it yet with the artist. If it's an artist, I'll wait until I get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If the art speaks to you, if the artist speaks to you, then it's a nice connection to have. And maybe that's the thing with the Millers. Somebody loves them so much they just want anything by them. Going back to Miller.
Yeah, I mean, look, as we always say, right? There's just many reasons overall why people will buy stuff, right? And why they pay X amount for X or Y or Z or whatever. And I don't know, but it's
Ruben.
Yeah,
that's Zed. That's Zed. We say Zed up here. This is a Canadian show.
You know what? It's interchangeable. I sometimes say Zed, sometimes I say Z. So
Me too.
It's the American influence that seeps into me, all our lives with television and whatnot, right?
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know. But but it's interesting because we so much focus on this whole Miller, $2,000 sketch stuff, but I mean just in general, the market, right? Like you were saying earlier, Bob, how many pieces were 100K? Like it's really out of control. Like it's really, really out of control. And I think I've been saying things are getting out of control probably since 2001, to be honest, but it's funny because, on CAF Live, they do the Heritage recap show. Right. And, I was talking to another friend of mine and he was like, yeah, 2 hours went by and, because they always start talking about the most expensive stuff and they go downwards, right? After 2 hours, they had barely broken down into the $20,000 barrier. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's really kind of gives you it's kind of a wake up call, isn't it? Like to sort of tell you what the hell's going on with the market, right? Like, but people keep thinking, hey, the sky's going to fall. The sky's going to fall. When is it going to fall? But I don't know. To me, it seems like the signs are there for that. The sky is going to stay as high as, and it's going to keep going higher. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that from that perspective? The whole, is it's too high. It's too high, or no, it's got legs. To me, I've been on record saying for years it's got legs and it's going to keep going. So what do you guys think?
I agree. I don't see it coming down anytime soon.
If CAF Live is any indication, it's not coming down anytime soon. I mean, when I go in there now, I just start at 5K, look at everything below, and then I come back to the beginning and start at the top, right? This go around, I remember seeing a cover, a Batman cover that I remember humming and hawing about a few years ago, around 3K, and it was 25K on CAF Live. And I said, I got to keep an eye on this. And I mean, it couldn't have been 15 minutes. That thing was snapped up. And I said, yeah, I don't think this is coming down anytime soon. It was a nice cover though.
Hey, Hart, just to let you know, so we when I spoke to Duke privately, we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on that later because Duke wanted to talk about that, and that's also an interesting topic that I also want to get into too. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, no, that's it. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Duke. Yeah.
Oh, you're asking what do we think about the price? I think you can't predict. We have no idea. Like all the people who are confident it's going to go up, they're like, oh, it's never gone down. It's never going to go down. That's such a unreasonable thing to say because none of us can predict, and there's a really bad record of people predicting, and including I cannot say myself what's going to happen. I have no idea. I'm not clairvoyant, and I don't think anybody really knows. So you just have to buy responsibly for your budget and hope that you don't lose your shirt on it. Because in the old days it didn't matter, but now it may affect your livelihood. So just try to keep it in an area of your life that you can afford it. But yeah, you just can't predict it. So just buy responsibly. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Right. What up, Jason?
Yeah, there might be some artists or some things that go down, up and down, but as a general, trend in the hobby, maybe more and more people are starting to see comic art as a legitimate thing to invest in. I mean, as it hits the prices, they're telling their hedge fund manager friends and their, all these people to say, hey, let's look at this comic art thing. And they're like, oh yeah, I read Superman when I was a kid. So, I don't know how many diehard collectors are dropping this kind of money in the convention, in the shows, in the auctions, and how many are outside of, like, how many people are actual collectors? Obviously some, but maybe some people are more people are entering the market that never bought it, never even considered it a few years ago.
I think in one of the old Felix podcasts, you brought up that the new collectors don't have the history, for example, that Rubén has of the old prices, so they don't think about that. They just think, what is the price today, and do I like it? Can I afford it? And they move from there. That's the floor, like the current price, whatever, when they enter is the floor, and they don't worry about value based on the past. And I think that's, as collectors, if we want to continue currently buying pieces, we have to always look at it from that perspective and stop looking back, because every time we look back, we hesitate and we don't get anything. So our collections could stay very stagnant. I mean, you have your budget, but let's say your budget is $1,000. Instead of buying 200 pieces, you can buy one $1,000 piece, right? So whatever your budget is, don't think of it as per piece, but think of it as a total budget, and then start with the current valuations. Because looking back at anything from before, it could have, basically you're missing out on opportunities, because those opportunities that you had 5 years ago, 10 years ago are not going to happen, right? You can't go back and buy that 10-cent popsicle that when you were a kid. Now that's like $1 or whatever, right? It's just not going to happen. If you said, oh, I'm not going to pay $1 now. Well, you won't have a popsicle. That's just the way it is, right? And so you have to go with the current. You have to refresh your interest at the current levels. That's all I wanted to add. At least that's how
you make a good point, but it doesn't help when you get a page in the mail and you see the old price on the back.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well, I mean, what's the worst about that would be the artist, because that was probably the price the artist. Oh, look, this guy sold it for $2 or $5, and now it's like $100,000 or whatever it is. Imagine, right? But I don't have one of those. But it could be some high number. So I would ignore it's fun as a history. It's like 10-cent cover Superman, right? It's not 10 cents now. It's just
can I ask, what is thigh gap? I've never heard that.
I'm wondering the same thing.
It's one of many inside jokes. We're not gonna have the time to get into whatever, but it's inside jokes from other shows, other live chats that happened or whatever. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's it. But I'm curious though, you guys, like in terms of your philosophy, like I've made mine clear about how, like, I've for 25 years been constantly, because of the prices, having to collect down, right? Get something cheaper because I can't afford this one. Now let me look for this one, right? So what about you guys? Do you, have you guys done that at all? Or have you, what is your philosophy in terms of, as because you guys have all pretty much been around for, quite some time. I mean, even Duke and Mike, I mean, since 2009, and for Mike and Duke in the early 2000 teens or whatever. It's long enough to sort of say that, hey man, since all of us have been in, the prices have really, really skyrocketed. I mean, like many X times, right?
Right.
So what's your philosophy? Have you guys done anything to do you still keep going? Are you still going after the same stuff you've always gone after? Or have you also been like me where I'm not going to, I can't collect that anymore. I'll try to go after this. I mean, I know you, Bob, obviously, I know your answer, but particularly Mike and Duke, like how's your philosophy changed in terms of the hobby and what you collect, given how much the prices have risen in the time that you've been in it?
When I first started collecting, right, that first piece with Joseph aside, I'll tell you guys, only $800, right? You get that rush when you get that first piece in the mail. So I think like a lot of collectors, I was just buying a lot, right? And you're not worried about getting necessarily the best piece. It's just, I want to get something else and something else and something else.
It's so impulsive, right? It's always impulsive at the start, right?
Absolutely. So then over time, you start to accumulate, okay, you know what? Let me get a bit more quality over quantity. Sell a few pages that maybe you don't need. Be a bit more strategic and wait for that piece to come up. Reach out to some people and get that piece that you want. But right now I'm at the point where I just buy a lot less because I just buy a lot less because I'm priced out. But I do have my list of pages from titles that I want, not necessarily artists per se. I'll tell you, like, for example, I would love a Fables page. I remember it was on Comic Link. This is a few years back. And I said, it's from the first arc. It's got word balloons on it. And I mean, I'm like $3-4 grand right off the top. This is unbelievable, right? So I'm laying in wait, believe me.
Right.
I'm just laying in wait for you guys to be sleeping on the wrong page, and then
it's so funny. It's so funny because I always, like, historically speaking, I've always tended to be. I always have this ability to pick what is going to be eventually sought after. And oftentimes what happens is I'm a little bit too early into that market, and I remember back when I was full-time dealing art as well as collecting, I remember saying, wow, man, I'm really loving this Fables stuff. And I say this because you just mentioned it. I said it was something so different, so new, it was just so enjoyable. I was like, okay, I go to San Diego, I pick up a bunch of pages of Fables, right? But again, I would love to have kept it for myself, but it had to be turned over, right? It had to be for my inventory, right? Because for me, even as a dealer, the philosophy I had was I always wanted to deal in art that I loved. So I never ever bought stuff that, like, for inventory that was just because I think it's a good deal. But if it was a comic that I never read or I didn't care about, I would always leave it behind, even if it looked like it was a good deal. I didn't care. I had to love what I was selling. You know what I mean? That was just my philosophy. And so I wanted to introduce collectors to the title because sometimes, whereas most of us, we tend to like start with reading comics and then we go looking for the artwork. But sometimes I know that I have bought artwork based on just how it looks. And then I go and I try the comic book and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And it introduces me to the comic book and it's something new to read, And then back into like 2005, I ended up buying a bunch of those Fables pages. But of course, it was for inventory. I had to sell them. And so I sold them all for probably $150 to $200. And they were all from the early issues. And I even had the very first appearance, birth page, as Jordan likes to say.
Birth page. Here we go.
Birth page of Bigby.
Bigby?
Bigby.
Holy wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be from issue 1.
No, Bigby when he first turns into the wolf. So I think it doesn't happen until issue 5 or something like that. First transformation. It's a big splash, Yeah.
You must have been really early on those because I remember Court Jabot. He had snapped up a lot of that stuff as well, really early.
Yeah. Like I said, it was like 2005 that I picked those up. And then I sold them that same year, And it's crazy now because now occasionally I see them at market. I'm like, I saw a Fables page. I don't know, maybe like from the 20s or the number issue 19, 22, something in that area. And I think I saw it go for like close to $2,000. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
It was the right page,
man, I was
maybe.
just like, holy crap.
Absolutely.
Holy crap. So
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I love Fables too. I got a few pages, only one Bucky page, but remember Court Jabot, is that how you pronounce his name?
Right.
I think it's Jabot.
You've seen, I think, Mike, you've seen my prelims. So I picked up a whole bunch of prelims that Len Medina did that Court was selling, and they're super cool. I love those. And yeah, I was an early Fables guy, and I don't see them on the market too much, but I'm sure they're out there. But yeah, it was a fun
Court
book.
told me at one.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's coming back. I just heard. They're
it's out.
They're relaunching it, I believe. I heard.
Yeah.
I heard too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the first issue so far. It was really good. But yeah, Court was telling me that those early issues are all signed in gold by Len Medina.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, so I've got to get one of those eventually.
Oh, we can talk.
We're up in steam.
Man. See, I like dealing with you, Bob. You're a good guy. Next time I come over to pick up a page, you got to invite me in. I know it's due to COVID, but that's okay.
I will for
Next
sure.
time.
Totally.
Just want to say hi to We're Up in Steam. He's coming from Nick Barucci's show, the Original Art Experience, Fridays at 7, that we all, some of us attend. Some of us in the chat here attend every week. So check that out. Yeah, so We're Up in Steam. Jeff Isherwood actually is a former Montrealer. That's where I'm from. And he's not only a wonderful guy, a good artist. And yeah, historically, he's always been very well priced for his pre-made pieces and his commissions. So yeah, so that's cool. Cool that you got to meet him. You know.
I have a question. Like, have you guys tried, like, because Mike, you said you held off and waiting for the right moment to pounce. I personally don't believe that works, but maybe it works. You guys ever tried saving up for a piece, and has that worked out? Because I've never been able to really save up for anything. It's not really a strength I have.
Hey, Christian.
Does that actually work for anybody? Is anybody in the audience, like, can they wait? Have they tried saving, putting money aside and letting it build, and then having like a war chest? I keep hearing people use that term, but I don't think I've ever seen it. But do people really do this? Is this a real thing?
Of course. I mean, in my experience, though, it, and this, this may vary person to person, I'm sure. For me, it's always been like, when I talk to people about this, it's always about like, if I'm the one talking about doing it, I'll be saying something to the effect of, yeah, I don't know. Right now, I'm just in the middle of trying to build up my war chest, because nothing that I want has sort of been coming up lately or whatever. And it might be tied into like, oh, yay, you've been selling stuff. Yeah, because I'm trying to build up my war chest just in case something else comes up, whatever. And, so I've always assumed a lot of people do it, I don't know, Mike, Bob, do you guys do that at all? Or
I've done time payments occasionally if someone's willing to do that. So that's kind of the same thing. And yeah, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, I hope I can have some money put aside for something I absolutely feel I need to have. Like, there's lots of, I'd love to have that, but then there's a page that just gets you so much that you hope you have the money put aside. So I'll sell stuff, and then I feel more justified. I may not put it aside, but I'll feel more justified about buying something else if I know that I sold an equivalent amount. So I'll do that, but I don't really save up.
Same. I've done one time payment for my largest piece. It was just the perfect cross section of artist and title for me and image, and had to do it.
Makes it less painful sometimes.
It was painful, and it's one of those things. It's the perfect piece for me, but when you look at it, you still remember the price, But it had to be done.
Yeah, now it probably feels good. I mean, hopefully it's gone up, right? Maybe.
Chuck's not patient enough to do that. No saving. And that's a good point, though, right? Like, I have to imagine a lot of collectors probably are like, yeah, forget it. There's always so many things to tempt you. Like, I don't have time to be saving up. I just want to buy stuff, right? So that's another interesting sort of way to look at things. And I imagine, like they say, exactly, Marcus, right away, too many squirrels if you can't build. It's very, very true. Yeah, I don't know, Duke, though. You're the one who asked. So what is your sort of philosophy with that sort of whole thing been?
Like I've not been able to save a war chest. I think it's like a silly concept. Like
right.
You know, you have
But
to.
Is it because it's difficult though? Is it because it's difficult, or you really think, oh, I don't even try because I think it's silly?
I mean, the problem is we can't predict when the piece we want is going to show up.
True.
And so if you pass on opportunities to come along because you're waiting for that piece, then that piece may never come, right?
True, and, but what about the fact that yes, of course we don't know when that piece you really want is gonna turn up, right? But I think we also can agree that there's always something coming around the next corner,
right?
In the not too distant future. Ergo, why it is probably a good idea to, okay, when nothing is currently popping up for you, you might as well try to build the war chest, because you know that something sooner rather than later is going to pop up. So then why not try, you know?
Yeah, well, I just haven't seen like anything like that making any sense at all, to be honest with you. You know, because whenever you're waiting, whenever I'm really excited about a piece, I usually lose out on that piece. That's really what happens, because usually the best pieces that they're at auction, and there's always someone who has a bigger war chest than I have. So it's almost, I would rather get something that is, say, buy now from someone, from another collector or a dealer, if I have that option, because it's, even if it's, say, a little higher than I would like it to be, because I feel confident that I have a chance of getting it, as opposed to having to go through the stress of maybe I can get this really cool thing later, because usually later I lose out almost 9 out of 10 times, right? There's a Thomas Fish or somebody with a bigger pocket. So because I think based on the age, the nostalgia point, there's a lot of people who have just figured out things in life that they can afford more things, you know, and so that's fine. But it just means that I try not to. It's not a strategy that's worked for me. And I was wondering if anybody else. It doesn't seem. I was hoping to someone to say, yeah, you know what, I saved, and all of a sudden the piece that I wanted just came up exactly 10 months into it when I saved up X dollars or whatever it was. But I haven't heard anybody actually say that they've accomplished this. You know, usually it's they save up a bunch of money and you just get something cool. But you can just get something cool when you have it, you know, but it's not specifically waiting for a specific, you know what I mean? Waiting for something. So I just feel like your system, Ruben, I want to just take just like a little bit more back and forth. I think your system of, you have X dollars, but you choose to split it up into more pieces instead of having the one piece you really like. I disagree with that method. I think for me, I would rather spend more on one piece and have less pieces, right? As opposed to a whole bunch of pieces. Because at the end of the day, I'm more the one piece is probably more satisfying to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone for it, you know?
Yeah, I get you. So Marcus says, you think there will be nothing good in the next heritage auction?
I think there will be, and someone who with more money will win it. That's what I think. That's what I'm trying to say. Because every auction where something I really want comes along, I lose it. And even if I up my, you know, psychological game, I go, okay, I'm gonna go double what I think it's worth, and then they go 4 times what I think it's worth. You know, so they always seem to beat me out. And this has been like 3-4 years now. So for anything I'm excited about, like super excited about, I always get beat out. You know, even if I look at comps from before and I try to use those comps as a measure, okay, I'll go 50% higher than those comps. I still lose that, because those other people are obviously prepared to go triple those comps or whatever it is, right? So that's the problem. There's always something good for sure, you know.
So yeah, no, I totally get you. Caesar says self-control. That's always a good thing. I only go after pieces I must have. Haven't been in heritage auction in 2 years. Wow, that is Caesar. You've got really good self-control. Wow, that's pretty impressive. And I don't know that there's a lot of collectors who could say that, you know, they've held back from bidding on any auction really for a couple of years, you know. But Caesar, tell me though, let us know, because you're saying you go only after pieces you must have. Am I assuming correctly in saying that the reason for that is because you also feel you've been priced out for the most part, and so therefore you're only going for those pieces that you absolutely love the most and having up in your mental want list as the ones that you would want more than anything other? Let me know. And Marcus says the psychological game is moot when you have the war chest. Good point. Again, that's a very good point.
What does that mean?
Well, because you were kind of saying, it goes to what you were saying. Like it's basically what he's saying is, if you've built up your war chest, right? you're gonna deal. You don't have to sort of be worrying all the time about, like you, what you said before. Well, I'm gonna bid, but well, I already know I'm gonna lose. See, because you're already self-defeating yourself. But if you had the war chest already built up, you might actually not lose. You might win, right?
So the problem is that war chest would take so long to beat the numbers that I'm telling you about. I don't want to get into numbers, but basically, no, it's not a psychological thing for me. I've just seen it happen. It's just like a realization of things that have happened over and over for like several years. It's not. I'm extremely optimistic. I go into it hoping that this is the one. Finally, I can break the streak of not losing every single time the things that I really care about. Because I have one things that I like, but that are not nostalgic. But the things that are nostalgic, I usually lose. I won one heritage auction. My first one was the only nostalgic thing I ever won, and ever since then, everything else has been just things that are nice but not nostalgic in any way. So yeah.
I got you. Okay. Jason.
Not $2.4 million. No, whoever said that, it wasn't 2.4. I wish. Yeah, right. That's more than my house. More than several houses.
So Jason throws out a really good question. Thanks, Jason. By the way, so auction versus dealer versus direct from artist. Where does the panel think that you have the best purchasing power? Anybody want to take that before I say anything?
All of the above. Pick your spot, right? I mean, sometimes dealers will have sales. Sometimes you'll get a great deal from an auction. Everybody hates to pay the 20% vig or whatever on the auction, and we're seeing it go higher and higher. I don't know. I think I always look at dealers and I think, wow, they're asking so much for it. But you'll find places where it's a reasonable deal. So I think from all three.
I'm going to say the artist. The best deals I've ever gotten have always been from the artist. Definitely not the dealers.
You know what? I would. I don't know if I wouldn't agree to that as a blanket statement, but certainly there have been plenty of times where you got great deals from artists. But let's if we're going to call a spade, right? Let's do that. The truth is, Mike, and you let me know if you agree or disagree. Whenever you find great deals from artists, right, directly from artists, wouldn't you say that most of the time it wasn't because the artist just happens to want to, give their fans great deals. Rather, it was most likely because the artist didn't have a rep, is busy drawing all the time, and doesn't really have a grasp on the market. And therefore, they just didn't know how to price their art properly. And that's how tons of people got tons of great deals from the artists. Because that's been my experience most of the time with artists.
I will agree you cannot make a blanket statement, but for example, one of the pieces that I love the most that I've gotten was a cover I got directly from an artist, but he was repped. But he just happened to be at a show. I saw the cover in his portfolio. I said, "How much is this?" He said, "Well, this is $250, which is much less than lesser covers we're going for on the dealer's site, right?" And he was just kind of like, I don't give him absolutely everything. I take some stuff, I give some stuff away. And, it's $250 if you want it. And I couldn't get my money out fast enough, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And that was that. But yeah, there's no blanket, there's no catch-all. It doesn't work that way. I'm just talking about just my experience. But even sometimes you might reach out to an artist directly. They don't even return your email. So there's that too.
Yeah, and again, sticking with Jason's question, Jason, what I've put up on the screen here that Marcus says, you can still take advantage of dealers who don't take the time to update prices, and I can tell you that that is very true. Not only have I personally been able to take advantage of that on occasion over the years, but people have also taken advantage of me that way over the years on occasion, because I just didn't have the time to update quickly enough. And especially in recent years, because the prices have been rising so fast, So that's also a very, very good point, Marcus.
I think if the artist has the art available and you can reach them, that's probably your best choice. But a lot of times, if you're buying older art, it may already be gone from the artist. Now you have a choice of dealers, other collectors, or auctions. And the trend has been that the primo pieces, the nicest pieces, are all at auction lately, pretty much, unless you have a connection to some sellers directly. But most of them are going, because people are afraid to leave money on the table, they're going to auction. That's what I've noticed. but I'm not well connected, so I don't have people offering me the really cool stuff. But if you want to offer me the cool stuff, you can start off. I'll take the offer. But you never know, right? But yeah, I think artists is great if they have the art, right? And sometimes that happens. If not, I like dealers again or collectors because I want to pay a fixed price. And if I'm going to overpay, at least that's kind of there's a maximum there. Whereas with an auction, you can get out of hand pretty quickly, right? So this avoids that. Right? Unless you really, some people are really disciplined and they can say, okay, I'm going to cap at whatever X dollars. And if it goes, the auction hits that, they stop. But I've never been able to stop myself at that exact number, whatever number I might think of. It'll always be X plus 1 or 2 more increments.
A
at
little
least.
more, yeah.
You go, well, if I'm willing to go to X, then why not X plus 1 or why not X plus 2? Well, why not X times 3? It depends, right? So it's just with a fixed price, then you're good. You're basically safe because you can either agree to it or not agree to it. That's just my opinion. That's where I feel today.
Right. And Stanley, I agree, and he's always welcome, and he knows it. So that's all I want to say to that.
100%.
But
or only if you talk in rhyme, and song lyrics must be involved.
Yeah.
No.
But So Rich, what Rich was saying earlier about the he says, oh, buying direct from the artist is the best, and you're supporting the artist. That is all true. Look, nobody's denying that you're supporting the artist. We get it. Okay, fine. But again, that's too much of a blanket statement to say that it's the best simply because, well, the only people who would have interest in doing that are people in the hobby who are interested in contemporary artwork, right? If you're primarily interested in things from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I mean, you're shit out of luck. There's no, most artists don't have that stuff anymore. So it's not so easy to just say, oh, well, these artists, you can get good deals from them, so go buy from them. Well, but if not, right? If I, as a collector, wasn't interested in contemporary art, then that's not a solution, obviously, right? So that's why I'm saying there's no perfect sort of solution, and it's different for everybody, But thankfully, I do like some contemporary art. So I do, and again, I personally because I've always been priced out of stuff over the years. I get contemporary stuff as well as vintage stuff every now and then. It's just I find it helps to broaden your horizons. That's what I've always felt. Like I'm lucky that I've always been interested in dozens and dozens and dozens of titles and artists and characters. So that has really helped me as I've been priced out of things, to sort of move on to the next thing. Listen, it's gotten to the point where I've told, I don't know if I might have told some of you guys a couple of years back. I want to say right around when COVID started, maybe just before, right? So I started getting priced out of whatever it was that I was, looking for at the time. And I say to myself, okay, what am I going to look for next? Right? So I'm like, okay, what other comics do I remember reading in the 80s that I really, really enjoyed that are like second, third, fourth tier stuff, right? And maybe I'll get art from those. So I decide I'm going to start collecting vigilante art. All right. I'm like, I love that costume. It really, really works well on original art, black and white, right? You can do so many things with that character. So pages look really, really lovely. So, okay, good. So I had bought a couple of pages, I think it was off eBay, and I got them for, I think on average, I think they came out to like $139, $159, something like that a piece, right? And so I would have to say it was probably a couple of years before COVID. So then I'm like, okay, this is great. I'll collect this stuff. I love buying stuff that I really enjoy, but which is really dirt cheap. To me, less than $200 is dirt cheap, right? So after I buy those first 2 pages, I don't see any more pages come up. There's no vigilante coming up anywhere on the market. So a couple of years goes by, and all of a sudden, a couple of pages show up, or maybe 3 pages show up on Heritage. And I'm like, I'm going to drop the hammer on these fools, and I'm going to get myself 3 more pages, and now I got 5, right? So me dropping the hammer is like, well, I paid $139, $149 average for the others. I'm going to lay down $500 for these babies, and they're mine. No problem, right? So what happens? They sell for 2 of them sold for $800 and change. And the other one was an auction that had 2 pages in the auction, and that lot sold for like, I think it was $1,600 or $1,800. Holy shit! You know what I'm saying? Like what? Like Vigilante? Come on.
At least you got two.
Yeah. So I got two. I forgot. I did get lucky enough to get 2 pages from the first issue.
Yes, you did.
That actually our buddy Mike D used to own, and I think he was probably the one who consigned them. And I got them from Heritage at maybe $500 a piece, which seems like a steal now, you know. But yeah, so imagine that Vigilante. I collected a total of 4 or 5 pages, and I was priced out of that market. I'm priced out of the Vigilante market.
Listen, you keep saying Vigilante. Hold on, we got to put some respect on Vigilante, okay? Because Vigilante is great. Speaking of which, I don't know if it's the same Cesar Alvarez in the chat. I'm not sure if it's him because I don't have my calf up, but I think it's him with the 2 Vigilante covers in his gallery, and just tremendous stuff.
I believe it is.
Yeah. So we got Vigilante fans in the house.
Yeah. Who loved Vigilante on the Peacemaker show?
I haven't watched it.
That's not
Deadpool.
That's Deadpool, but
That was Deadpool.
That was Deadpool, man.
It was better than Deadpool.
Oh, it's such a good show.
Yeah, I know, Marcus. I know. I get that, but it's like,
You know what though? So I think this is the mistake you're making, Ruben. Again, this is the mistake I was pointing out to before. You're using past numbers as a gauge for current interest, which is the thing is, if it's 2,000 for a Vigilante page or 1,500, maybe something else like a Daredevil by Frank Miller is 20,000. So by comparison, you should buy some Vigilante at 1,500 because nobody can buy the Daredevil at 50,000 every month, right? But you can maybe buy one Vigilante every couple of months. So
that's the thing is like, I can't, for me, it's not like you have to remember, like, come on. And Mike, to your point, Vigilante, I don't care that he's on a show. The fact is, you cannot argue that he's not a 2nd or 3rd or 4th tier character. You can't argue that he is. He was not a top tier character. Just because he came out in the Titan series doesn't make him a top character, right? He was a secondary or tertiary character, whatever you want to, however you want to put it. But come on, like generally the market for art has typically followed the level of interest that people had in those comics back in the day. So that's why I'm saying, right? Back in the day, not that many people bought Vigilante. So of course I expected that when I bought 2 pages for $139 to $159, I figured, okay, the next pages that come up, we're still going to be under $200. I mean, can you, does it really make sense just because he's been on a TV show that, Vigilante's suddenly worth $800 or $1,800? Like, come on, that's insane.
Yeah, honestly, when I was saying that, I wasn't even thinking about the TV show. I'd completely forgotten about it. I just meant to say, like, there are Vigilante fans out there that want a nice example, right? 3 of which, at least, I think are on the stream right now. That's all I meant.
Well, I would also add that. Sorry, I was gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say. Something to do with. Oh my God. Okay, so basically, if you're I guess the 139 is really cheap, so you have to bring up your value a little bit. But that wasn't the point I was gonna make. I'll come back to it if I remember.
Yeah, but you know what though? Like, so I understand you got to keep moving, right? You got to keep up with the market. Like I tell people all the time. It's just that in that example, for me, it was like that's why I dropped the hammer, thinking I was dropping the hammer at 500, because I was like obviously willing to pay 500 after having paid 139. Come on, you tell me that's not enough? You really would have, if I had told you at the time, hey man, I'm dropping 500 on these mothers, right? I'm dropping 500 after I paid 139. You really honestly can tell me now that you would have told me.
Are we talking about? Sorry, are we talking about the page from the first issue?
No. These were no.
On the other ones, I would say that is
they weren't even
the hammer.
Yeah, they weren't even Pollard pages from the first issue. No, they were Todd Smith pages from like issue, I don't know, 20 something, 30 something, whatever,
Right.
So I would.
We've all been there. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say quickly, we've all been there in terms of thinking that, we're about to drop the hammer. My colleagues at work, right? They know nothing about comic art. And I remember one day telling them, I said, guys, what page was it? It was a Comic Link auction. And there was a Why the Last Man page from the first issue. Gorgeous page by Pia Guerra. And I said, you know what? I was telling my colleague, I said, listen, dude, this is a great series. It's a great artist. I go, this is a page from the first issue. I said, I'm going to shock the art collecting world. Watch what I'm going to. He goes, what is that? I said, well, you know, these pages, they go maybe $650, $700. I'm going to drop $2,000 on this page. I'm going to shake up the art world. He's laughing. He's like, you're crazy. $2,000 for a piece of paper. Needless to say, this page went for over $7,000. My jaw was on the floor.
Remind everybody, what page was that again?
It was a page from Why the Last Man.
Why the
number
Last
one.
Man? Oh,
It's a gorgeous page. It's got ampersand. It's got York on it, right? Everything. Word balloons, you know, through the first 12. But $7,000. And I thought I was dropping the hammer.
Marcus has a secret for you, Mike. Marcus,
you
should have kept quiet, Mike.
You think so, Marcus? Damn it!
So I remember like the point I was going to make, which is if the prices go up, that actually frees up more inventory from collections. Because if I own Vigilante pages and I knew they were worth $150, I would rather keep them because it's not going to change my life much to sell a $150 item, especially if it's something that I love, right? If I love it, why would I? There's no benefit to me. What can I spend the same amount of money on that I would enjoy as much? Probably nothing. Can
I just say though, I didn't. I don't know if you're referring to me, because I didn't sell them. I still have them.
No, I understand you have them, but I'm saying the person who's giving them up, right?
Right.
The reason art is not coming up in large droves is because when it's cheap, why give it up? You might as well hold on to it. So there's not a lot of selection. So the few pieces that do come up will go higher because if the market is higher, right? Like you see, like Todd McFarlane or something gets a high number, people more of those things show up or whatever it might be, right? Something gets a high value, then people say, okay, you know what? It's worth giving that up because I'm going to get a huge payout. Otherwise, as a seller, why give up something that I love for a low value? And so you're expecting,
right?
Yeah, but Dukes, I mean, there are still 150. There are still 150 pages that people are selling. I mean, not everybody's. First of all, they don't always love everything, and sometimes you're going to sell pieces for 150. It's not going to change your life, but that's just sometimes pieces are $150, right? So that's all. I mean,
I guess, but
I overpaid.
I would just say if I love something in my collection, I have a whole folder of worthless art that I would just never sell because it's so little money to come back. I cannot spend on something that I would enjoy as much. Right?
You make sense. I agree with you. It's a hassle to sell it, pack it, ship it when you're not getting very much money for it. But there is still a lot of that art that changes hands because not everybody's got, sometimes you got to sell that stuff.
Yeah. So Nick's got some philosophy, dropping some philosophy on us. Didn't sell my Don Heck art when it was inexpensive and not more expensive, and glad I held on to it. Well, sure. But in fairness, Nick, we can, in this hobby, you can pretty much say it at this point for almost anything, right? Like pretty much everything is worth more today than it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. There's and of course it's different. Everything's gone up to different degrees, at different multiples. But yeah, anything, regardless of the artist, right? Regardless of the artist, who cares? If it was artists who were always sort of considered bottom of the barrel or unpopular and so on and so forth. Even their stuff has skyrocketed because it's not really about the artist. I say this all the time. A lot of guys like to say, "Oh, it's I collect artists first, the character second." Nah, I'll argue every day that even those guys that say that are actually collecting character first, artist second. Because it's actually, oh, well, I'd like to get. See, think about how they think and say it, right? I'd like to get a Neil Adams page from X-Men, right? So because you're saying the artist name first in your head and out loud, you think the artist is more important. But that's not the case. What you're really saying is that you want to get an X-Men page with X-Men characters on it by Neil Adams. That's what you're really saying. That's what most people actually do. You know what I mean? And the proof of that is in the fact that since the history of this hobby, right, since the beginning, if what those guys say was really true, if there was a lot of truth to that, you would have been seeing the character pages, right? Meaning the ones that just have background characters, secondary characters, regular humans and regular human clothing, right? You would have seen those pages getting snapped up all the time. But those are always still, there's more interest in those types of pages these days because the market is bigger and because the ones with the superheroes on them are so much more expensive. So people will settle for those other pages. But bottom line is if you can afford one with heroes on it, you're not going and purposely buying regularly the ones that don't have the heroes on them, right?
Yeah, I don't think that argument has a lot of merit, Ruben. I just think if you can't afford something expensive, you're going to buy something cheap, right? I bought a Neil Adams Bob Hope page. Did I want a Bob Hope page? No, but it was a very, very inexpensive Neil Adams page, and I got it. And I couldn't
Was it
afford
cool?
an expensive one. It was pretty cool because it's Neil Adams. That's why I bought it. You know?
Yeah, I like Bob Hope, and I'm a young person, but I would, if it was cool, it doesn't have to be, and Neil Adams is just a bonus in that case, right?
Well, I mean, I bought it because it was Neil Adams. I like Bob Hope. I respect Bob Hope. I think he's, he was. Most people don't even know who Bob Hope is today. But
He was
yeah,
the oldest man alive for a long time.
Oldest man alive. Yeah.
Let me just quickly interject to make a point to Rich. So Rich, when I speak, I'm always speaking in general terms, right? There are exceptions to every rule. Absolutely.
Frank Miller's sketches.
You, my friend, are an exception. That's all I'm going to tell you. The general consensus is most people are not purposely going out there looking for the non-hero pages. I just want to make that clear. And I know that there are some people that do go for the aesthetic, the artistry, and oftentimes it's other artists, of which you are one. So there you go. But you're definitely an exception, not the rule. Yeah,
Also,
sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
Just like going back to you mentioned Vigilante was on Peacemaker or whatever, and I was thinking about this the other day. We often think there's always it seems to be an increase in interest in a comic or a character because they're on a TV show or they have a movie coming out, and I think that's a trap that we should be aware of, because if you think back, how Westerns were so big, in the 50s and 60s, and now nobody cares about Westerns, right? That was a TV shows or movies, movie theater movies, and people were into that. That was a huge thing. Now it's completely gone, right? And so the trap is to believe that because a character has a TV show that sucks, or a character appears as on a movie, that therefore forever they will be important. That's not a good. It's a trap, basically. I think that we get to see the same thing that happened with Westerns, right? So don't fall into it thinking that this is great now that this character's got legitimacy because they're in a movie. That's a fleeting thing that goes away in a few years. Unless they start having a long run of these, it's neither here nor there, right? It's not going to help it. I'm a huge fan of the Crow. Crow pages are worth money, but they're not going crazy, see, compared to a Marvel or a DC, even though they had several movies and a TV show, right?
Did you say Crow?
Yeah, the Crow, James O'Barr. As an example. I'm just using one as an example. He had several TV shows. One show and several movies. And the art is still kind of, it's not really going up. It's staying pretty flat, right? But it had a lot of notoriety within culture, right? So I think movies are a little bit of a trap. And if we see a character appear, as collectors, we should be aware that is not a sign that this is now legitimately a valuable thing to collect, right? Just collect what you really like,
That's what happens in the comic market.
It does happen in the comic market also. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Moon Knight, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right? Bob, Marcus got a little message for you, man.
Yeah, it helped sell Bob Hope art. Yeah, clearly.
He also has Bob Kane art in the background, I think. Is that Bob Kane behind you, Bob?
Oh, yeah, that's a Bob Kane.
Bob Kane and Bob Kopman. I got it.
Yep, love it.
So listen, he got his Neil Adams, and that's all that matters. I don't know if I would have gone for the Bob Hope myself, but if it was an Arsenio page, then hey, why not?
An Arsenio page, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, look, that seems like a good sort of a segue to go into what I think a topic that I think Duke, you wanted to talk about, which is actually something I talk about a lot privately too, and it's something that I always refer to as the death premium.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, for sure. So I think it's interesting. Well, whenever this happens outside of art as well. When a person dies, a famous person dies, there's a lot of attention brought to that person. No, Dino's not dying, I don't think. Hi, Dino. So when a famous person dies, they get a lot of attention, and therefore there seems to be a lot of interest in their art. But that moment is kind of fleeting, right? But I wonder, this is my question, because for art,
but is it fleeting? Is it fleeting? Because I don't think it is. Right? Because to me, it's what I call the death premium. As soon as the artist dies, everybody, and I'm not going to say dealers, because a lot of people out there like to blame it on the dealers. The dealers are terrible, right? No, everybody's a dealer. If you're a collector, you've ever sold shit before, you're a dealer too, right? Everybody and his grandmother who owns the piece from that artist and who decides to sell it, they're selling it at a jacked up rate, right? Everybody. And so I don't see it as a fleeting moment. It seems to me everybody jacks it up, and then from that point forward, because nobody lowers it again, the prices stay there. Sure, maybe there's a quick rush to buy those pages by that artist, and then it sort of peters out a little bit, but the prices sort of stay at those new levels because of the death premium everybody places on it.
So I would say that that's not true in every market. Like I collect Funko Pop figures, and when a actor dies or a character dies, there's usually a premium. All of a sudden, there's a lot of interest in that Funko Pop, and the prices go up. But with art, and it makes me think, like, is it different? Because, okay, so first of all, the comic art market has gone up anyway for dead and alive artists. So what you're saying is maybe true, maybe not true. We don't. It's hard to say. But in fine art, okay, in fine art, we're not just, but in fine art, like the people collect when an artist is dead, then there's a limit of his or her art that exists, and now there's a chance for those to go up more, over time as a result of the finite amount of art that's existing. And I'm wondering if that is comic art, is it close enough to fine art to also have that as a long-term thing happen, right? I don't know. Just wondering how you guys feel about it. Or
I mean, I'm not even sure I understand the question, because to me,
yeah,
when you relate it to the fine artists, and will that happen? I mean, I'm not really sure what you're saying, because it seems to me that it in fine art, the artist dies, and yes, the prices go up, but like I'm just saying that seems to happen in every art market. It already happens, and it has always happened in the comic art market. So I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding your question.
Like, I don't know. Like, do you think Neil Adams' art is way more expensive today than it was a year ago because of his death?
Oh, I see.
I don't think that's happened yet.
Okay, so I will say this. What I have noticed, I can only tell you what I've noticed. I've noticed that immediately upon his death, yes, there was an immediate increase in prices paid. I will say it hasn't been that long yet, right? But I will say I've noticed, I haven't really taken a close notice at the auctions for the published art, but certainly for the lower end stuff, the pieces that he created and to sell on Facebook, on his weekly Facebook show. So that type of stuff, the family sells. Yes, absolutely. I saw an immediate increase. You're seeing stuff that were, sketches that were selling at $400 from him and the family, selling for $900, $1,200, or in that general range. So there was an immediate actual impact. Like I said, you guys might know better than me, or maybe the guys in the chat here might be able to tell us if they've noticed so far anything with the published art. But I can say certainly with the unpublished stuff, absolutely a big increase.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. I would say that there was already a huge premium on some of the artists, like Perez pages, Adams pages. I didn't really pay attention, and hasn't been a long time since these guys passed away. Maybe Tim Sale art had a bit of a spike. It was very recent, if there were some pages on Heritage and stuff like that. But so many artists have died. So many of these guys were doing art in the 50s, 60s, so I don't know. It's a tough call. If they're not doing anymore, sure. Supply and demand.
So as an example, right now, so Kirby's been gone for a long time, right? And he's done a lot of stuff, and his prices have they jumped more than artists that are a lot, than other artists because his past? I mean, does anybody really think of it that way? Do you think, we should buy it because he's dead, or because it's a certain issue that we care about? That's it. I think it's more character driven there than it is driven by the fact that he's not around. Am I wrong about that? I don't know.
No, well, I think it's a confluence of factors, right? Because I will say that there is a legitimate amount of a certain amount of people, right, collectors, who, when the artist dies, right, this subgroup of collectors are guys and gals who have always wanted to get a piece by that artist, right, but just kept putting it off. Right? Kept putting it off. Oh, yeah, I can always get it. There's plenty of them out there on the market, but, I can always get it. I'll get one. And eventually they keep putting it off. So it's the constant putting off of buying the piece that suddenly has all these people when the artist dies, right? As soon as they hear the news, right? That's what happens. All these people immediately start hitting the websites quickly. Oh my God. Before the collectors and the dealers all start raising their prices, I'm going to see if I can find the piece by Adams or George Perez or, or Tim Sale or whatever. So part of the reason is because all these people rush in quickly to try to get one, right? Before the prices go up. But typically, the people, like I said, the people who have the art, typically, as soon as they hear, they jack up the price themselves anyways. So it's like, it's something that even I feel, even if as a collector, even if you just heard the news, there's a chance you might get something if you quickly go to some websites looking, but I think when the news hits, it seems like it's the word spreads fast, and it's enough for most of the dealers and collectors to, jack up their prices. So yeah. And like somebody was mentioning earlier, I think Marcus mentioned the family, Neil Adams' family, they themselves, because they've continued their weekly show of selling his artwork, all right, on Facebook. And even they, he says, have jacked up the prices by $500 on those lower price pieces. Right. So it's an
you're absolutely right. And not to be morbid and not for profit, I've done it myself. There was one artist whose work I've always admired. He passed away suddenly, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Now here comes the. Sorry, I don't know. Just run a.
That's all right. You can do it.
But went right to the dealer's site. Right, I said, "Okay," because now everything's gonna evaporate, and they had already removed it within it was within hours. And I was like, "Wow,
right.
Okay, they move fast." This took everything completely off.
Right. And just to address CJ, your question, honestly, most people here don't really know because the internet didn't really exist for example, when Kirby. So Kirby, as an example, he died in 94, right? The internet was around, but there was not even eBay yet or whatever. So really you only had to go by, in order to know whether his prices sort of jacked up. You'd have to know by having been around back in the day and checking out conventions, and not many conventions had people selling art back then, other than maybe in New York and California, but Ditko and Colin, it's interesting that you mentioned those guys, because I would say that with Colin, I do seem to remember a jacking up of prices. With Ditko, it's a little bit different. It's harder to say because, as you say, those were really high already, particularly Spider-Man, right? So I would say that the Spider-Man stuff didn't necessarily get a death premium, but they got their typical, from one auction to another premium, which they keep sort of always go stronger anyways, But I can say for Ditko that on the lower end stuff, the stuff that most of us can afford, Speedball from the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, ROM, that stuff definitely went higher as soon as he died. So yeah, it pretty much, I think you could say, happens to pretty much everybody.
Well, I have a question for Bob, because Bob, you collect vintage Archie, and I'm guessing a bunch of those guys are now no longer doing art. Possibly.
Yeah, the only one that's still around is a guy named Bob Balling, who did little Archie art in the 50s and 60s and some Archie art, but everybody else is long gone.
Right. So is there like a distinction in values in different Archie artists, really, except for maybe DeCarlo, or is it pretty average depending on the content?
I think there's a distinction in the Archie artists. Yeah, I think typically DeCarlo art goes for the most. People find his art to be the prettiest. It is gorgeous stuff. Everybody else, it's just personal preference. So yeah, there's a hierarchy, I suppose, of them. Yeah, Harry Lucy.
Yeah, but the nice thing about Archie, and it's too bad because when I had my single art drop literally 365 days ago today, a year to the day, by the way, my art drop last year on when I first opened the YouTube channel, when it was Bob, for those of you who don't know, Bob consigned me that Archie, nice Archie splash for that show. And man, like I still feel like I wanted to get that, you know, but I was like, okay, I'd rather let somebody else buy it if somebody wants it. But I still feel the Archie stuff, especially like you can go back into the late 50s, early 60s, and it's, to me, it's dirt cheap compared to superhero stuff. And most people, I would say, at least like, let's say 40s ish and older, I could say probably remember Archie, reading at some point Archies when they were younger, you know. Given that, I find it kind of surprising that more collectors today don't kind of dip into the Archie market, at least a little bit, you know. Some do.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some, but like I would have thought that there'd be a lot more, you know.
I just want to say I think most of the vintage Archie art is crap, and people should stay away from it. So that's my feeling.
Yeah. That's yeah. So yeah, whatever. I you know, I don't know. It's
Is it a creepy thing? Because I noticed like for the Dan DeCarlo stuff, the stuff that sells at the premium is always like the Archie characters in bikini, you know, whatever. And the girl, right? But were they old enough to even appreciate? Like, is that like child? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that something we should just people should just avoid?
Yeah, people like his girls, and yeah, they like them when they're wearing
right
cute outfits. So what can I say?
So Jason says that he theorized that the increases would be more drastic for active artists versus some of those names who weren't really creating much published work. Tim Sale, for example, recently, right? Because he was never like a monthly guy. But I don't know. So have you guys noticed if there has been, you know, how much of a bump the Tim Sale stuff? So here's the thing with Tim Sale. What I can tell you, the only thing I've noticed, and it has nothing to do with his death. What I would say is that Tim Sale's stuff I had been noticing over the last, I don't know, year to two years. Man, that Batman Victory Long Halloween stuff, that shit's been skyrocketing drastically over the last couple of years, especially. So, you know, I mean, that's his most famous stuff. So that stuff's already been, you know, going up. So I you know, did his death get a death premium attached? I don't know that there's been enough examples come up since his death for us to really know, at least not that I have noticed personally. So I don't know if you guys have noticed anything, but
I haven't noticed anything. Maybe his sketches might go up more because he always thought, well, I can always get a Tim Sale sketch at a con one day. Now, unfortunately, you can't. So maybe that stuff will get more expensive. But yeah.
Nick says that it jumped with his passing. He says, keep in mind that the unpublished DD page on Heritage, I didn't watch it, so I don't know what page that is. Went for a lot more, but yeah, I take your word for it, man. I mean, look, it doesn't surprise me. Rich, it's a kidney failure is what they reported. It doesn't surprise me. Like I said, for me, you know, judging with my own two eyes, what I've seen for the 25 years I've been in the hobby, I don't think I can come up with a single name of a single artist who didn't get some level of death premium attached to his artwork.
What about Michael Ringo?
Oh no, I noticed.
Is there a premium on his stuff? Because
yeah,
I'm a fan, and I didn't see these prices seem to be even today. They haven't changed much. I don't think he's done a lot of big titles, but you know,
yeah,
that might be the factor.
Yeah, so with Ringo, I think there was more of a question of. I always felt, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I perceived it. I always felt that he had more of a cult following, a smaller cult following, guys who were really into his brand of cartoony stylings. And so therefore, perhaps if you didn't notice it, it's perhaps because the guys who went after, you know, his stuff, it wasn't a large enough pool of people for you to see that there was like this huge sort of chase after his stuff and therefore an increase. But I do remember at the time, because I do what I always do when somebody dies. I'm like, oh boy, here comes the death premium, right? And I do remember looking that day and thinking, oh, look at this one. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm pretty sure, like I wasn't 100% positive, but I think I do remember feeling like, yeah, that's higher than I remember it. And the other thing, it's not just the price. You also know that the demand increases, right? And you start seeing sales right? Stuff that was on websites for a long time suddenly sold. You know,
I think, you know, your argument earlier that people collect character first and artist second, that may inform this more, because if as long as the character is something people wanted, right? Because we looked at the Archie art, they didn't go up that much. The Waringo didn't go up that much. So it wasn't the artist as much as it would be the character in those cases, right? And the artist would be tied to the character or the specific storyline. And so maybe the death premium is not as important, except for maybe drawing attention. And the character is really what draws the biggest increase, if anything. Like, the focus should be there. Because long term, will people care, oh, this is a Spider-Man from the 50s or a Spider-Man from the 70s, and there's no 50s Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Let's say 60s or 70s or 80s Spider-Man versus who drew that at that time. I don't know, right? Is that possible? I don't know. As long as it's a strong, like equally strong image, right? I mean, there's crap art at all levels, but anyway, I'm just thinking about it as a way.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a valid point. Caesar says, you know, try and find flash pages. But Caesar, I would posit to that point that, at least in my experience, those pages have always seemed to, for whatever reason, not really be around. You know, so I guess it was one of those things where whoever bought them first has always hung on to them and loved them enough that it's one of those sectors of the market where the fans just love it enough and they've never really flipped them, you know, even years later. I don't know. That's what I've noticed, at least, that I've never ever really seen much of that stuff around, you know. And Hart, Hart says after Sale died, I saw a jump in calf posting. I did too, certainly. Although I will say, for me, most of what I saw on calf was just general posting. So people posting pieces from their collection to show them off, not necessarily people, oh, let me try to sell and make a huge profit on my Tim Sale piece, you know?
Right. I noticed the same thing on Facebook as well. When he passed, you're seeing a lot of people posting their sketches, not pages so much, but more sketches they've gotten over the years, but none for sale.
Right. And you know what? It's an interesting thing, Marcus, that you mentioned John Paul Leon. Again, not and Hobson Hoka from Brazil. I mean, especially Hobson wasn't super, you know, it wasn't a superstar by any means, you know. So I don't know that. First of all, I don't know if there was any jump in the prices of his work, but if there wasn't, I would say I would expect somebody like him to have slipped under the radar, because he was a guy who, without wanting to sound bad, but he was a guy who, in terms of name value, you know, he wasn't a guy with name value. So therefore, you know, you don't expect guys like that, when they pass away, to suddenly have huge jumps, you know, in the prices of their art. But having said that, I didn't really look around and so don't know if the prices were affected or not. John Paul Leon, I noticed some pieces coming out more, but I was never really a big follower of the art sales, or at least looking at the prices that his stuff sold for. When I would see his stuff, let's say at auction, I would look at it just for aesthetic purposes only. I just enjoyed looking at his artwork, and I would pay no attention to the prices, you know. So I don't know if JPL's prices, you know, got jacked up after his death, you know. Did you, either of you guys or anybody in the chat?
I saw a few pieces. Man, it wasn't Comic Link or Heritage, but anyways, I noticed some more JP pages coming out, particularly DMZ, and the results seemed strong, considering what I know some people have paid for DMZ covers. So you're talking like, not that they were that expensive, right? But I mean 3x, right? In that range, which seemed pretty strong to me post his death.
3x.
Yeah. But I don't know. Now, mind you, the DMZ covers that I'm thinking of, right, were bought before, so maybe that's just where the market was at. I'm not entirely certain. Full disclosure, it was him I was referring to earlier when I said that someone whose work I respected had passed, and when I went to the site, it was all gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if Mark ended up putting that stuff back up, but at least on the day of or shortly thereafter, it came down immediately.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but I mean, so just to bring this all full circle, Duke, I'm not sure. Did you get the question you wanted to ask everybody? Has it been answered or not really?
Oh, that's fine. This is just something we were talking about. It was just interesting to notice because this year we lost a lot of artists, big name artists, like one after the other, and it was just interesting to see how people felt about that. If people are thinking about that factor at all when they're making a purchase, if that's in fact affecting their decisions to buy or not to buy something. For me, I just have a list of things that I like, and that does not affect me personally, like as far as my decision. But I'm curious if it has for other people, right? You know?
Yeah. I mean, no, it was a good question. I've always kind of thought that like I said, I've always chatted about it, never really too much in depth, because to me, it was always like a cut and dried topic, right? Like I've always said, oh, somebody died, so-and-so died. Oh, now watch the prices skyrocket, right? Everybody's going to jack the prices up, and that typically is what happens. And then, so like, what is there to talk about, right? It's just frustrating, really, right? Because you start kind of seeing the greed in the hobby, right? And what's that other thing that always takes, that always happens, right? When the artist passes away, right? You see people not only jacking up the prices, but bringing out the artwork with the jacked up prices, under this sort of cloak of, in honor of so-and-so who passed away, I really thought it would be a good idea to bring out this piece for sale at my triple, quadruple the price that it was yesterday. You know what I mean? You get all that kind of bullshit from sellers as well, right? Which is also a frustrating thing too, right? Trying to, really profiting off the death under this cover of, I'm doing it to honor the guy or the woman. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of a bit sort of creepy and underhanded as well, right? So that's another thing that I've never sort of been a fan of, when with as far as this topic's concerned, I think Hart, that equals 5K plus for the big names, but for sure, that's absolutely the truth, right? I mean, but it's all perception, right? But it makes sense, right? Because if the big names are guys, if you're talking about guys who, this piece sells typically for 20 grand, then of course it's going to be 25 minimum when the person dies, right? Like that's, we know that, like that's what's always happening. It's just, it is, that's how people are. Yeah.
So it's the lesson to buy the Frank Miller shitty sketches that we discussed earlier now, knowing that he has health issues and maybe in the next 10, 15 years, 20 years, maybe, hopefully this is a long time, but who knows?
Sorry, dude. Sorry, I was busy laughing. I didn't hear. Sorry, I have to ask you. Can you just repeat the question?
No, you heard it.
No, I didn't. I was laughing at Marcus's thing. That I
fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm saying like just bring you back to the beginning. Maybe this is an opportunity to buy Frank Miller sketches for $2,000. Because why wait for that inevitable date? Because human beings, we are all mortal, sadly. We learned this. So eventually, those $2,000 sketches could be a really excellent way to buy something that we like more. At a later date, right?
Go for it, Duke.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's gonna be it's never gonna happen. But okay, I can't. So a lot of times people buy what they call like rabbits, like something comes along, or squirrels, like something just comes along. In the movie Up, where the dog sees a squirrel, goes squirrel, right, and they just react to the thing that they noticed. And sometimes collectors, we see a piece of art that we go, oh my god, I gotta, there it is, and it's not expensive, it wasn't planned. But all those little things, all those little squirrels add up to a big something that you enjoy more. So it's important, I think, to avoid those things, right? So I would rather not get the $2,000 Sin City piece that is not going to satisfy on any level for me, because it doesn't represent what I think his art is as a fan of his Wolverine stuff and earlier stuff. And then just go for something that really satisfies more, right? So I can't bring myself to buy anything for value. It has to be for the art, for the love of the art. If I buy anything for value, I always end up getting rid of it later. And it's, for me, it feels like I lost an opportunity because then I didn't have funds when the thing I really wanted. This is also going back to the whole war chest. So I don't have a war chest, but I try to avoid buying things that are squirrels that I don't really care for. I'm not excited about, right? I try to avoid all of those things, so that when something I do care about, I can just say, okay, you know what, this is it. I'm excited about it, and you know. But a lot of people like to have something all the time come through the door, you know, art drop or whatever. It's not important to have art drops, I don't think, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool, guys. Look, that brings us to just within 9 minutes or so about, you know, where we wanted to finish. But I why don't we end with this? Stanley, you are up, bud. He's asking, do you guys believe in having specific end goals to your collection? And we can finish off with this. You guys can say whatever you want. And by Stanley, by end goals, I'm assuming an exit plan for our collections. Let me know. I think that's what he's talking about. Exit strategy, you know, for, you know, we're all getting older. What we, or is it final goals for what we want to collect, Stanley? Let me know. But yeah, I mean, for if it's end game in terms of what happens to the collection, just speaking for myself, I mean, I've already told my wife what to do, so she knows what to do. Not going to get into the details, but yeah, there's always, I believe there's always should be a plan. Having said that, I also know that there are even friends of mine, close friends of mine, who say, "Oh, I'm just going to collect until I die, and whatever happens, happens. My heirs will have to deal with it, you know." But okay, so Stanley, thank you. So no, he says, oh, he means final goals you would be content with. Me again, finally, I can only say that I'm at the stage of my collecting where I'm just happy still collecting the occasional page by Tom Grummett here and there whenever I can find them. Other than that, that's on my mental want list. Everything else that I buy, which is not much, is kind of just impulsive things that, oh, hey, that looks good, you know, and it's cheap. Yeah, I that's, you know, and I'll go for it. But I guess I'm doing what you can call winding down my collecting days right now, you know, and I don't really want to spend a lot of money on expensive pieces anymore. I'm just happy with the art that makes me happy. Tom's stuff always has made me happy, and it's still relatively very affordable. So that's my plan, guys. Hello.
Sure. I'm
Oh
just,
yeah, yes. Oh, sorry, I wasn't the first to jump in. For me, it's basically just, again, just going back to my list, right? Like I said earlier, I just want an early Fables page. I want a planetary page. I want a JRJ or Diodato page from the Bruce Jones Hulk run. And until I get everything on that list, I'll always be around. I'm at the comic shop every Wednesday, so there's always, you know, a new series. I'm like, okay, Family Tree. Jeff Lemire and Phil Hester reached out to him a couple years ago and said, hey, can I get a page from you? So there's always something new, but the primary focus is just the like 10 things I have on my want list, and just kind of waiting until those appear and try my best not to get blown out of the water. Now I'm just glad I'm glad I already have my Vigilante page, because now I know Ruben's there trying to snatch up all the art. So I'm glad I got the cover I got.
Yeah, no, I've given up on Vigilante. You know, once I saw those prices jump from 139 to like 800, I was out, man. I was out, you know. But Marcus says he's just hoping to get his kitchen remodeled. Listen, Marcus, you got to start jacking up those death premiums, bud. That's what you got to do, and then you're all set. You can remodel your entire home at that point.
Maybe if you
Can I
kill
just say
someone,
real
that's
quick?
another way to do it. Sorry, is it too dark? Yeah.
Caesar, so when he first started, he made a list of 6 pieces of wanted. Wow, getting those 6 would be the end goal. I have 3 of the 6. Nice, Caesar. Congratulations, man. That's pretty cool. That's very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, 50% of the way there. And if you're still looking at continuing collecting for the foreseeable future, that's a nice goal, man.
It's a good goal it's a good goal if you have self-control, right? And if you have, I think I was reading a book recently about you know, finding being content, and I think it's if you're always looking forward, then you're not going to be content, right? And so the way to kind of feel at peace in your collecting is to look back at what you have and appreciate what you were able to acquire, and if by doing that you're able to slow down. If you're looking to slow down, I'm not saying you should slow down or.
Oh, did he freeze?
he was getting too philosophical.
Look, it looks like he froze. All right. Either of you guys want to have a last word on this? Because, by the way, I just want to
Bob.
say real quick, because Will makes a great point, right? Collecting is a work in progress. Be content with what you have, essentially, where you are, but strive to push forward. So it's right. A lot of us are pushing forward, and not focusing on what we already have and enjoying what we have. So that's right, which I say all the time, right? So
Yeah, I'm very happy with my collection. I still am on the lookout for representations or other examples of the stuff that I love, and when I can find something that I love from the few things that I collect, then I'll sometimes buy it. But I'm happy with my stuff, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But no end goals, other than to thin it down. I do think, I tend to have sometimes many examples of the guys that I like, and I probably don't need all those examples. So maybe sometimes trim it down a little bit. But
I'll try to help you with that.
Sure, sounds good.
Mike, any final goals for you?
No, just trying to work off that want list, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you and I agree with you to a large degree in terms of the titles or the characters, as opposed to the artist. Mind you, again, I want a planetary page, but John Cassidy, he's great, right? But just want to work my way down that list. My fables can be a Medina, can be a Buckingham, doesn't really matter. And once I get to the end of that list, then I'll try to stop buying new stuff. But when you're in the comic store every Wednesday, you're always falling in love with a new title, right? Mind you, a lot of this stuff nowadays is digital, so there is nothing to buy. Welcome back, brother.
I totally get it.
But
I totally get it. But you're also you're a youngster compared to Bob and I, so you've got many more years to worry about collecting. So you don't have to worry about...
I haven't been called a youngster in a long time. I appreciate that.
No, but it's true, right? I mean, it all depends on your age as well. Sometimes it affects your philosophy on where you're going, where you're at with your collecting. But yeah, no. Listen, guys, this has been great. I really appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with me about all this stuff. And at some point in the future, hopefully we can do it again. Hopefully with different people, mix you guys up, and But yeah, it's been fun. So and thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. Thanks for dropping by and making the chat active and asking questions and making comments. Really appreciate all of you guys. I just want to say goodbye to my friends here, chat guys. Hold on for 1 second. I just want to tell you something about next week, if you can. So thanks again, Bob, Mike, Duke. I appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you guys very, very soon. Okay.
That was great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks again, guys.
Take care, Ruben.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, appreciate it. Guys, just to before you leave, I just wanted to let you guys know that next week, thank you, Will, thank you, Rich, Rick, thank you all. I just want to let you guys know that next week, I'm having my first of four comic art show and sells for Andrew Hennessy, okay, who I've been representing since 2005. Andrew has been holding back everything that he's been working on for the last 3 years. And previous to that, for a few years previous to that, he was pulling off a lot of his better pages off the market. So I lately have been getting the feeling that he may be close to, at some point, sort of pulling everything, sort of like Walt Simonson and Al Milgrom have always done. And because of that, I thought, well, this may be the last opportunity for anybody out there to get affordable, very affordable art, but also a focus on high content quality pages. So I've chosen about 160 pages, and that over 4 different episodes, I'm going to be offering as an art drop live starting next week. I'm not sure if I'm going to do 4 consecutive weeks, probably not, but next week and the week after, those 2 for sure are consecutive weeks of art drops of Andrew Hennessy's inked art. So tune in for that. Because like I said, I don't know if it may be the last time that he offers any. And no Vigilante, Marcus. I would have bought them already if that was the case. So with that being said, tune in next week for that. I'll be sending out a promo very soon. Anyways, to everybody on my mailing list, to remind everybody about it. But yeah, just tune in if you can for that. And thanks again to everybody for tuning in tonight and all the support that you've all given me privately, as well as publicly. I really, really appreciate it. And that's it. I hope to see you guys all next week again, and in future weeks. I just hope, like I said it all the time, man, this is about getting the community together. It's not about splitting each other apart and tearing each other down. Let's all come together, and more of you need to come out and start doing more stuff like this. Step out of your comfort zone and do shows of your own if you have to. I mean, that's what makes this community so great. It's the more choice we have, the more entertaining and fun the hobby will be. So that's it. Without being said, I appreciate you guys. Love you all. And hopefully I'll see you guys next week. All right. Peace.